Hey everybody, welcome to this video on living the baby steps in Canada. So this is our goal here in this video, is to really take everything we've learned about making a budget and make it real. Put the last finishing touches on how do we actually live, how do we survive, and how do we actually go about living our lives while following these principles of making a budget and the baby steps. Okay. So the first and foremost thing, and I hope you've gotten this from what you've seen so far, is the budget meeting, right? You've got to have some time set aside where you're going to sit down with your spouse and deal with the budget. If you with the spouse, of course, if you're married. And the key there is you've got to make it happen. Usually what happens in a marriage, you have the nerd and the free spirit. You have one person who loves the numbers, one person who doesn't like the numbers at all. And the nerd would love to get together, and the free spirit, they just want to go play, right? And so the rules are, free spirit, you've got to come. You've got to have a meeting where you're going to sit down and talk about these things. But nerd, the rule for you is you've got to let them change something. I know you think your budget is perfect. It doesn't matter. The free spirit has to change something. Okay. They got to choose some number needs to change in your budget. Okay. And you need to let them, because the goal is working together here. The goal is that together, the married couple is working together towards this goal of controlling your finances together. So keep it easy, make it fun. So I was just advising somebody the other day on, you know what, if you're the nerd and he's the free spirit, and he doesn't really want to do this, you know what, find a time when he's got energy. So let's do a morning meeting when he's off work. Okay, let's make him a beautiful, awesome breakfast, because find him his best breakfast that he would love to eat, and make that for him, and then and make sure he knows beforehand. Don't surprise him, you know, a couple days before. Hey, honey, I'd like to really make you a delicious breakfast on this day. And once we're done, I'd love to sit down and talk about our money. We do that. Do you think we'd be okay with that? Right? And really make it fun. Try to have some fun with it. Try to have a good time with it. The nerd, whoever the nerd is, you've got the real challenge, and I have this challenge because I'm the nerd in my family, to really make it as simple as possible. Right? The free spirit normally doesn't like looking at a ton of numbers. They don't like looking at massive spreadsheets or anything like this. They just want the minimum. They want to get it done. And so what I found is I have to bring it down to, okay, here are the 10 things we need to talk about, or there's 5 things we need to talk about, whatever it is. Just the thing. Like, they don't care about the mortgage going out. Mortgage is going out, and it's going to go out. It's a fixed expense. It's not changing, right? What they care about is, how much are we going to put on debt this month, if that's your situation, or how much are we going to save for our car, or save for our emergency fund, or whatever, right? And where are we going to cut for that, right? That's one of the ways. One way you can make that fun is actually get some play money and bring some actual play money, Canadian play money, to the meeting. You can get it on Amazon, and bring it to the meeting and actually put it in piles. That can really make it easy to work with. Okay, so if you're looking for ways to deal with a spouse that's reluctant or doesn't really want to do this stuff, doesn't really like the numbers or like that kind of stuff, these are ways you can do that. It can really work together to agree on goals and priorities, what's important to you, and what direction you guys want to go in your marriage financially. And I would encourage you to combine accounts if you haven't already. If you've got multiple accounts, I would put them all together and have one joint account where you guys are, where it really feels like you're locking arms and you're going together at this money thing, and so that you can really work together. There's a cool scripture I heard. So Proverbs 31, many people know that Proverbs 31 is the chapter all about the amazing godly woman, right? The righteous woman. And there's a phrase there that's really interesting. It says, an excellent wife who can find, she is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. That to me is really interesting. This is written to a culture of mostly men, right? This is the men were the ones who were reading, the men who were the ones who were educated. And yet it's actually saying that, no, even you men, you think you're so awesome. No. If you have a righteous wife, you will trust in her. And because you trust in her, you will have no lack of gain. You'll actually get lots of stuff, right? Like, God knew that a marriage needs both partners working together at this. Both partners are literally partners. You are working together towards common goals. Okay. The value of one or the other by themselves is nothing in comparison to together. 1 + 1 is equal to more than 2. Okay. All right. So exercise 1, plan your next budget meeting. Decide when you're actually going to get together and have that budget meeting, when you're going to get together and talk about, you can call it something, sexier than that, but that's what it's got to be, a time where you're going to sit down and talk about the money. Okay. So next up is the baby steps. So these are the actual 7 baby steps. Now I've laid them out here in terms of a Canadian context. So we'll go through them one by one, but these are the 7 Dave Ramsey baby steps. And so what the baby steps work with the budget is, the budget allows you to decide where your money is going to go. The baby steps tell you where to put it in what order. Okay. That's the most important thing. So it's kind of like the way that the 4 walls relates to the budget. The baby steps relate to your budget on a whole as to where the money's going to go, where the extra money is going to go, I should say. Right. So after you get done the 4 walls and you've got the basics done, where do you put the rest? And you put the rest in this order. So number 1, you need a basic starter emergency fund of $1,000. If I've gotten you really excited about paying off debt, and some of you are, I know, that's awesome, but you need a starter emergency fund. For actually many years, Dave Ramsey didn't have that baby step. And the first baby step was throw everything at the debt and become consumer debt free. But what was happening was people would have a small, but let's say a medium-sized emergency happen. The car breaks down, or there's an accident, or a medical issue, or something where you need $800. And people who couldn't cash flow that in 1 month, now all of a sudden they were in a real bind because they actually needed this done. It was an emergency and they didn't have the money for it. So what do? They go back into debt. And that's one of the worst things you can do on this planet, is ever use debt as a goal, as a means to get something done, because it feels so deflating. You're working so hard to get rid of the debt, and now you're going back into debt. Oh, that feels bad. That feels hard. And it really can discourage people moving forward. It really can drill home this idea that, no, you're never going to be debt free. So why even try? Right. So you never, ever want to resort to debt. And so let's have a $1,000. It's not enough, but a $1,000 starter emergency fund just to be able to keep the wolf away from the door. Right. Something that's going to just hold back life enough that if something small happens, you can deal with it. Right. If there's a funeral you have to fly out for somewhere else, it's enough for you to go. That's it. Right. It's not enough for you and your whole family to go and spend a week while you're there. Right. That doesn't work that way. It's enough for just to get the minimum done. If your roof starts leaking, it's not enough to redo your roof. It's enough to patch your roof. Right. That's the point. It's enough to keep the wolf away from the door. Stay alive. So start an emergency fund. And once you've made it, stick it somewhere that's away from your regular money. Maybe that's a separate bank account. Maybe it's an actual, you could take the cash out and put it in an envelope under your bed if you want, whatever you want, but keep it separate from your main joint account. Then once you've got the $1,000 emergency fund built up, then get consumer debt free. Pay off all your consumer debts, all student loans, car loans, everything except the mortgage. Okay, that's baby step 2. Baby step 3 then is, once you are consumer debt free, now continue with that gazelle intensity. Baby step 1, 2, and 3, you're in gazelle intensity this whole time, pushing hard to get the debt paid off, and then push hard to build up that fully funded emergency fund. So now once you finish that, you're now completely consumer debt free. You've taken that $1,000 starter emergency fund up to a fully funded emergency fund. And so 3 to 6 months expenses. So you can imagine that if you make, let's say, $50,000 a year, in 6 months, you're going to bring in $25,000. In 3 months, you bring in $12,500 in income. And so it wouldn't be unreasonable for a fully funded emergency fund to be literally $15,000 sitting there doing nothing except keep you safe from emergencies. That's an emergency fund. You don't invest it. You don't do anything with it. It literally sits in a bank account and does nothing. You can stick it in a money market fund, make 1% if you want, but stick that, you put it somewhere where it's safe. It's not going to go down. You're not investing it, and it's there somewhere where you can access it if you need it. Okay. That's a fully funded emergency fund of 3 to 6 months expenses. Once you've got through baby steps 1, 2, and 3, now you can let the gas off a little bit. You don't have to be gazelle intense anymore. Now you can just move into this life rhythm of intentionality. Baby step 4, now you start investing in retirement. Before this, you stop retirement. If you're investing in retirement in baby steps 1, 2, and 3, you're not doing the baby steps. You got to be focused entirely on baby steps 1, 2, or 3, wherever you're at. Now, baby step 4, invest exactly 15%. Take 15% of your gross pay, take your entire household gross pay, multiply by 0.15, and divide that by 12. And that's how much you want to go into retirement on a monthly basis. Now, when you're deciding where that money is going to go, first place to put it is anywhere you've got a match. So if through your employer or through somewhere you've got availability to get a match on any dollars you put in, take full advantage of that first. Then after that is the TFSA. TFSA is your best resource after that for a retirement, actually, not for just random savings. And then RRSP is after that. And so you go by the dollar up until you hit that 15% mark. Don't go less than 50%, but also don't go more than 15%. Even if you're older, even if you're 50 or 60 and you're saying, I want to catch up in retirement. No, at baby step 4, exactly 15%, because we also want to get that house paid off. And that's where we're going next. But before there, baby step 5 is your kids' college fund. And this is very general. You can do something for kids' college, whatever you want to do. And there's no moral imperative that to pay for your kids' college. I think it's a good thing, and I'm certainly planning to pay for my kids' college. But you don't have to. If you don't want to. If you think it's not something you want to do, okay. But to do something for your kids' college fund is a really good idea, especially in Canada, because RESPs are here, and we have a 20% match on your money. If you don't know, you put in if you put in up to $2,500 per kid per year, they will give you 20% back, which on $2,500 is $500. So if you put $2,500 in in 1 year for a kid, you'll get an extra $500, and all of that money, including the match, can be invested and it will grow. And so that's what the numbers there I put there are $208 a month. 208 works out to about $2,500 a year per kid. But in fact, our RESPs are even better than that, because you can catch up previous years that you missed. So for us, we weren't ready to do any kind of kids college. We couldn't. We felt broke. We felt like we couldn't do any investing while we were getting out of debt and while we were in debt. And so when we finally started, our kids were now older. We had 2 kids already, and our oldest was, quite a bit older, maybe 7 or 8. And yeah, it would have been 8, I guess. And so you can actually double that up and actually catch up one whole previous year worth of RESPs. And so that brings it up to $416 per month per kid. So there's a lot of opportunity there to invest for your kids' college and get matched. So those numbers there, what you're seeing are the maximums to get the full match, to get the full amount of extra money from the government. So that's a good thing to aim for. If you put in $50, you'll get still some match, just not as much as you could have. Then once you've got kids' college dealt with, and however you deal with it, then paying off the house. And so now any money you find extra on top of retirement, 15% retirement and kids' college, now you put that towards the house, and you aim to get the house paid off very, very soon. You want to keep that house. Hopefully, the goal of having a house, the guideline that Dave Ramsey gives is really good, which is that whatever house you have, the expenses of your house should be at about 25% of your take-home pay in total. Any more than that, you're gonna struggle. As that gets higher and higher, we'll get closer and closer to house poor. And it should be on a 15-year mortgage. And so we did the opposite. We were on a 15-year fixed rate mortgage is what he said. We were the opposite. We were on a 40-year, even when we got the house, 40-year variable rate mortgage. And yeah, we were dumb. we overbought in house. But you want to buy a reasonable house. And so luckily we've gotten to a place now where our housing expenses are 25% of our take-home pay on a fixed rate now mortgage. So that's the guideline there for that Dave Ramsey recommends. And you start throwing money at that until it's finally paid off. And then you're in baby step 7, at which point all that's left to do is build wealth and give generously. All right. So now that we've talked about the baby steps, let's talk about, again, living these baby steps. One of the things that's really important to deal with is insurance. Now, one of the first thing to talk about in insurance is life insurance. Why do we need life insurance, or how do you know if you need life insurance? The question always comes down to, is somebody relying on your income? In other words, if your income disappeared today, if you lost your job or lost all ability to bring in money, would somebody else be affected? Now, usually if you're married, that's a yes. Especially if you have kids, that's usually a yes, right? But if you're single and you're living on your own, that might be a no. And then in that case, you don't need insurance. You don't need life insurance. Life insurance is specifically designed for one thing: to take care of people who will be left and who will be in trouble financially if you were to pass away. That's the main purpose of life insurance. So in the same way, then, you don't always need life insurance. For instance, if your net worth was $100 million and you were married or you had kids and you passed away, like, it would be hard. Of course, you're loved and you'll be missed, but financially, I think your family will be okay, right? So that's the thing. At that point, you'd be what's called self-insured. Okay, so you don't always need life insurance, and you get it when you need it. Now, something to watch out for here, there's actually two types of insurance out there. One is called cash value insurance. The other is called term life insurance. Term life insurance is the most simple kind. It's insurance. You are paying for insurance. You pay a certain amount for a certain period of time, and if you happen to die in that time, the life insurance kicks in and you get your estate gets the money. If you don't die in that time, your insurance finishes and you don't get any of the money back. You paid for insurance. It actually works exactly the same way as car insurance does. If you pay car insurance every single month, if you don't get into an accident, it's not like you get the money back. If you drive for the next 30 years and you never get into an accident, all that money you spent on insurance is just gone, right? That's insurance. That's how insurance works. What they've done in the last 30 years, 40 years, is they've really started to build in more gotchas, more scams, really, into these insurance products. And so whole life and universal life are ways that they will claim are ways you're trying to actually build up a cash value, invest inside of a life insurance policy. And these are never good ways to go. You want to stay away from these as much as possible. They are never good ways to go. I've got videos on these if you'd like to look into more of the details, but yeah, it's never a good way to go. So what you need is 15 to 20 year term life insurance. So the life insurance policy will last 15 to 20 years, somewhere in that range, depending on how young your kids are or how long you think you're going to need insurance for. And you need about 10 to 12 times your income on each of you. And so, for instance, if somebody's making $50,000 a year, you want to get $500,000 to $600,000 of insurance. And where that number comes from is pretty simple. Again, somebody is relying on that $50,000 income. And so if you were, God forbid, to pass away, I mean, it would already be so hard, but we need the money. We need to actually maintain our lifestyle, right? And so what we do, we receive a $600,000 check, and we can invest that, and it will throw off in growth about 50 grand a year. That's where that number comes from. Is that if you take 10 to 12 times your income and you invest it at 8 to 10%, you will make back your income. But people will say this last phrase here, but my insurance isn't making me any money. You don't say that about your car insurance, right? Insurance, you're paying for insurance because you can't afford for this thing to happen, right? This horrible situation that if that was to happen, it would be such a horrible thing that we're going to pay to insure for that. That's all it is. Okay. Now, the only other type of insurance you really need is long-term disability insurance. Something that if you don't die, but you're completely unable to work, you definitely need something to be able to pay your bills while that's happening. So that's the only other type of insurance you need. There are lots of things that are brought up and suggested as good ideas in the insurance world and outside the insurance world. But many of them end up just being, at the best, not worth the effort, and at the worst, horrible ideas. So any cash value insurance, they're just not worth it. They're never worth it. Mortgage insurance, that's a funny one. A lot of people get insurance on their mortgage, and so what that is you're actually paying, and if you pay them this premium every single month, if you happen to die or get injured or whatever, they will pay off your mortgage. And that sounds like, oh, that's a very cool thing. But you don't realize that you're paying for insurance, and the value of that insurance is actually going down over time as you pay off your mortgage. Why not just get life insurance if you're worried about dying, or if you're worried about getting disabled, get long-term disability. Short-term disability, that's going to be covered by your emergency fund, right? Short-term, if you're going to be disabled for a month, 2 months, 3 months, that's the point of an emergency fund, right? Extended warranties, we did that. We got an extended warranty on our brand new Sienna we bought. That was dumb. That was really dumb. Extended warranties are where they make all their money. On average, it's something like 11% of the money actually goes towards the expense of repairing the car. All the rest of the money is commissions. They make all their money off these things. Don't do it. Especially at places like Best Buy. Best Buy will sell you an extended warranty on a pencil if they can. Okay, they'll give you an extended warranty on everything because that's where they make all their money. Don't do it. Debt consolidation. This is a really tricky one. A lot of times it feels like it makes a whole lot of sense to take these high interest loans, put them together into one big chunk that's a lower interest rate. Yes, certainly if you save on interest, it's something, but there's two issues with that. One is it feels like you did something. I was king of this. I actually had a credit card that was 0%, and I could transfer money to it every year. It was every 15 months, I think it was. You could actually transfer to it. And so I took money from my line of credit, put it on the 0% credit card, and said, hey, I'm winning because I'm not paying any interest on that. No, I didn't do anything. The money never got paid off. It's still there. I was still in debt, right? It felt like I did something and I didn't. All I did was move it. I didn't pay off anything. And that's the issue. That's one of the issues. People feel like they did something. They feel like they paid it off, but they didn't pay it off. They just moved it. Okay. Second is it actually hurts because you now don't have the debt snowball anymore. The debt snowball, the reason it works is because you pay off a debt and you feel great about it. You pay off another debt and you feel great about it. You pay off another debt and you feel great about it. If they're in one lump sum, you've just got this giant mountain to climb, and you lose the ability to have those little wins along the way. Certainly, if you can save on interest rate, it's not a bad thing. But it's not the issue. If you have a $10,000 loan and you save 1% on that, well, 1% of $10,000 is $100. So if you do some maneuvering and you put that $10,000 from this 7% debt, 7% loan to a 6% loan, you will save $100 on a year. $100 is not your problem. $10,000 is your problem. You've got to be throwing thousands of dollars at this every month. You give me $100, I'll take it, but you got to realize it's 1% of the problem, not the 99% of the problem, which is the principal, the $10,000. And the last one I got here is timeshares. Timeshares are a massive, massive industry where people really love to take your money, and you are buying air, quite literally, where you are buying access to a building, and the fees are so awful with these things. I encourage you, go check on eBay. If you go on eBay and you type in timeshare, you will find tons of timeshares for $1, and nobody buys them because people just want out. They spent thousands and thousands of dollars on these things over the years, and they just wish they could get out. Okay, so yeah, don't do it. We almost did. We were really close one day to almost getting a timeshare. We got really lucky. God really protected us there. All right, so exercise 2 then for this section, write out all your life insurance details. If you have life insurance already, write out the amounts, write out who they're on, write out the contact information, maybe find the policy if you don't know where it is, right? And put all this stuff in one place. And so you know how much life insurance you actually have, you know what it's for, you know what type it is, and then decide if you need to get some more, right? Or if you need to change something. Quite often, if you've had a cash value one for a long time, it's been a bad product this whole time you've had it, almost guaranteed, and it will continue to be a bad product, so you should get rid of it, but make sure you get term life insurance first. Never cancel insurance until you've got a new insurance policy in place. All right. So the next thing to talk about in living the baby steps is the buffer zone. And this is a issue about how do you actually live day to day, controlling the money in your account. And this shows up and it explains it here. This is the amount of money that's in your account at the start of the month before anything happens. And since we do an every dollar budget, since we do a zero-based budget, it should also be the amount left in the account at the end of the month. This is your accountability. If it doesn't get to that same number, you know you didn't quite track everything. Now, it's important to keep in mind, this buffer zone is not the emergency fund. They're two different accounts. So your emergency fund, you want to keep separate from everything. You want to, and this is important because you want to make sure that in your mind, you are clarifying that I am only using this in the event of emergency. This thing, this buffer zone, I'm going to use quite often. It's going to use every month. I'm going to use a little bit and replenish it, use a little bit and replenish it. The emergency fund, you're never going to touch it unless it's an emergency. That's really important to get in your mind. So why is this needed? Why is this a big deal? Well, imagine at the end of the month, you bring down your account to $0, throwing everything else to the debt. That's when you realize that your first pay for the month is not until the 15th. What do? You literally have no money for half a month. Right? And this is the trouble. I actually ran into this once, this idea. And so you've really got to think through, okay, shoot, what am I going to do before that next pay? So there's a couple ways to deal with it, but let me give you an example first, just in case you're not seeing it. So in this situation, I've got somebody who's budgeting $6,000. So they bring in $6,000 income and they're paid on the 15th and the 30th, twice a month. Now their balance on the 1st is going to be their buffer zone. This person has a $2,100 buffer zone. Now watch what happens with that buffer zone. At the beginning of the month, they have a mortgage payment that comes out $600. They have some bills from the 1st to the 15th that make up about $1,225. And that all gets eaten up from the $2,100. So the $600 and the $1,225 bring down the balance to only $275 left. Then they receive their first pay for the month, $3,000 in income, right? Half their budget. So they've got that now. Their balance is now $3,275, and they now continue the month. They have another mortgage payment comes due for $600. They have more bills from the 16th to 30th that amount to $1,525. And so right before their last paycheck, they have $1,150 still in their bank account. They receive $3,000 in income, and so now they've got $4,150 in their account. If you add up all the expenses, they've only had $3,950 in expenses, but they brought in $6,000. So in order to have an every dollar budget, the last bit of money that's missing, which is the $2,050, needs to be accounted somewhere, and these guys are in debt. So they they put all that on their debt snowball. And so once they do that, once you take out of the $1,150, the $3,000, so it's now $4,150 that's left. You take out the $2,050 and you're back down to $2,100. That's how the buffer zone works. It allowed you here in these first couple weeks before you got paid to not go negative. And that's the point. At the end of the month, it lines up perfectly to what it was originally because you brought in $6,000 and you spent in expenses in your budget $6,000. That's how a buffer zone works. And that number, 2,100, the challenge is figuring out what number that should be and then making sure to use it wisely. So that's the first question. How much should it be? Well, let's deal with the situation if you're out of debt. If you're out of debt, what I would encourage you to do, if you're past baby step 3, is just look over the last few months, look at the balance of your account on the 1st of each month, and then the balance on your account immediately before your first income for the month. Take the difference between those two, and where is the biggest difference in those two? So I made a little worksheet for this for you at WePayOffDebt.ca/budgetmaker. I don't think I have it here, but you go back over the last, say, 3, 4, 5 months. If you download this PDF, it'll actually has an example there built in. And look over the past 3, 4, 5 months and see, okay, what is the biggest difference from the first day of the month to the right before I got the first pay? How far down does that go on the worst month? Then maybe add $200 to it just to be safe. And we'll call that our buffer zone. This is the easiest way to make a buffer. Is it's done, it's set, and odds are good. Most months you'll be totally fine. And by the way, even in general, it can still screw up. It can still not work, but you have more often than not, the money will be in the account. It's just you won't be able to buy the thing you want to buy when you want to buy it. You might have to wait a little bit. But the bigger situation is, how do you buffer? How do you create this buffer zone while you're in debt? And the best way to do that is to really think through every single month what's going to happen in the first couple weeks of next month. So you're now coming up to the end of the month. You look at next month coming and you say, okay, before the first pay, what's going to come out? When will it come out? And how much will it be? Add up all those values, maybe add $200 extra just to be safe. And then that's the amount you need to leave in your account. Really what this is doing is it's changing your buffer zone every month just to what you need for next month. This does two things. One, it keeps it as small as possible, right? It actually might happen that last month you needed $1,000 buffer zone, and this month you only need 800. So let's throw that extra 200 at the debt, right? That's a really nice advantage of this. Yeah, and so that's probably the most important advantage to this. But it does take some complication, but that complication actually allows you to become intimately familiar with your finances, which is really, really good practice to be in. So you can pick whichever way you want to do it, but the second way will allow you to have more progress faster. Now, things to watch out for while you're doing this: you could actually run out of money if it goes negative after the first pay. If you do it the first method I mentioned there, if it starts here, you go down, you get your first paycheck, but the first paycheck was smaller, and then you have a lot of bigger expenses after that, you could still go negative. So you got to watch out for that. If you forget something, if you don't take something into account, it can affect your spending for that month, right? So you'll just have to cash flow it out of this month's budget instead of your buffer zone. The money's just not there to spend, and so you got to deal with that. As well, as I said, it is your accountability. So if you had a $2,100 buffer zone and you get to the end and you only have $1,900 left, there's $200 unaccounted for. You didn't track it somewhere. That's the only explanation. And many months I have a couple dollars missing, but using every dollar, like, you get really, really good at tracking this, where literally you're within 1% of your entire monthly budget. All right. So exercise 3 for this class then: choose your buffer zone technique and number. Which method you're going to choose and what that number is going to be in your account. And that's it. That's it for this class. So that's it for living the baby steps in Canada. So hope that brought you some value today. Have a good one. We'll see you again soon.